So I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and coming in, there's a fair amount of litter on the freeways coming in and a fair amount of graffiti, so I'm not sure what to expect here. But in defense of the city, there was also a lot of graffiti that had been painted over with paint by the city, so the city at least to some degree cares what the city looks like and what the freeways are looking like, so they're trying to at least keep things looking good out there. I had done a video on comparing Kansas City, Missouri with Kansas City, Kansas a while ago, and I'm going to do a drive through the two cities and see what they look like comparing them. Statistically, on basic city stats that we'll get to in a minute, Kansas City, Missouri looks better, but it also, the crime is significantly higher here than in Kansas City, Kansas. I think I might have been in a bus lane. Let's turn here. Okay, we'll get back into the downtown in a second. So this city has a population of 509,000, and it's rising slightly, which is a good sign for the city in the sense that a lot of cities of this size started losing people after 2020, and they did not here. So that's a good sign for the city. It's 56% white here, 24% black, and 11% Hispanic. So it's relatively diverse. The average age is 35, which is a little on the young side, but somewhat normal for a city like this. 17% of the adults are seniors, which is also a little on the low side, but you know, kind of normal at the same time. Average income is $42,000, which is really good, especially for a city that's got higher crime. There's a 15% poverty rate, and amongst that, it's 16% females and 14% males. And I found that in a lot of cities that when it comes to people living below the poverty line, females are far more likely to be living below the poverty line than the males are. So that's the case here. This building, I don't know if that one's still being used. It looks a little more like it's not being used from this side, but in the front it might be. The marriage rate is 40.6%, which is actually pretty good. We'll just leave this on this side. Vacant lot with a bunch of graffiti, but we're not going to hold that against them. This building's straight in front of us. All boarded up. So far the city's not looking too bad though. I mean, it's got the normal city stuff that you're going to see everywhere now in America. .54% of the people that live here were born here, and that statistic is really kind of low. And their population is rising here, but it's not really rising enough to offset that. So that shows that a lot of the people that grew up here must grow up and move out. Showing 5% non-citizens. And we got a lot of noise here with this road construction. The roads here actually, I wouldn't, they're not bad. They're not like a lot of cities where they're really bad. They're not bad at all. try and get in front of this guy. Right as I say that, I go right into a big, huge pothole. But that's, you know, that's pretty much any city in America right now. The potholes are horrible everywhere. Yeah, that road actually looked like the road needed to be redone. In 2019, they had 152 homicides. And in 2020, it jumped up to 176, which a lot of cities jumped up for 2020. A lot of cities had bad years as far as crime. And in 2022, it was 166. So they started coming down a bit. And then the murder rate in 2023 is 35. Supposed to drive on this. They got train tracks here that apparently they let you drive on. Okay, this part looks cute. This part looks cute. Pre-Floyd, their murder rate was around 30. And now in 2023, the murder rate is 35. So it's definitely gone up since 2020. Since 2016, so going back a while, the assault rates have been over 1,000 here. And that's worse than Baltimore. So their murder rates are not as bad as Baltimore, but 35 is that's a bad murder rate. That's, you know, that's of the higher ones in the United States. And any assault rates over 1,000 are really bad. Memphis is like 2,000 though, and I think Detroit is like 1,700. So it's bad, but it's definitely not, you know, of the worst in the country by any means. And this road looks kind of cute. Let's go up this one. There's not really a whole lot of people in the downtown. I was a little worried. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was a little worried that I was going to be here a little too late to drive through comfortably. I mean, we're getting stuck at a lot of lights, but the traffic isn't too bad at all. So the violent crime here is 301% worse than the national average. And it's one of the worst, as far as violent crime goes, it's one of the worst in the state of Missouri. We'll go up this one. Which most people probably already know that it's bad here. It's a huge, it covers a huge land area. So there's neighborhoods that are really bad, and then there's areas that are really good. So you could live here, and as long as you weren't living in one of the really bad neighborhoods, you could live here just fine and not, you know, think anything of the crime, because there's actual really good neighborhoods, and then the ones that you want to stay out of. The year-over-year crime here is showing an increase of 8%. So that's, you know, something, if they don't get a handle on it. That guy looked like he might have been homeless, the one sitting there. That's something, if they don't get a handle on it, they might, things might start getting out of control here. Because it already started to go up. And then we got, always, if you see these little areas in cities where there's like a little park type area, that's not really like a park, but you always can find homeless people in those areas. Just up to the right there. So your odds of becoming a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 68. Property crime 1 in 22, and overall of any crime 1 in 17. All those numbers, I mean, those are not good odds. I mean, they're a good odds that something could happen to you. If you look at it that way, they're kind of high odds. But there's not a whole ton of homeless people hanging out. I've seen a few people walking that look like they're homeless because they have a big bag on their back and look like they're carrying a ton of stuff with them. But there's not like a tent on the street like you see in a lot of cities. More road construction. Construction everywhere here, which is good, even though it's an inconvenience to people. Their cities at least spending the money on the stuff they're supposed to be spending the money on. So the cost of living here too, it's lower than the national average. And the housing is 22% lower. And I imagine that's because there's a lot of neighborhoods that have high crime, and that's going to offset the areas with the nice houses that are, you know, the $500,000 or more homes. As far as school goes here, 36% of the kids that graduate are proficient at reading and math. And the Missouri average is 44%. So it's far worse than the Missouri average, and the America is 48% that are proficient at reading and math upon graduation. So 36%, and you do that for 10 years or something, and you got a whole population of people that can't read or do math, and the crime is just going to keep going up. I mean, there's not going to be any, you know, if they can't get jobs because they can't read, or, you know, they can't do math, so they can't work as a cashier someplace or whatever. Yeah, this is a really, really good size. It's a sprawling city that for just the area that it covers, but even the downtown is really big. I don't know how I get over there. I'm going the wrong way for that, I guess. And 86% of the people that live here graduated high school, which unfortunately that is a good number for America. 86% of a city graduating. I mean, there was a time before I used to follow these numbers, where, you know, most people in a city would graduate, and most would be able to read and write upon graduation, and now that's just not the case at all anymore. I mean, the standards for schooling are so low, and the crime's going to keep going up because these kids just, if they're graduating and you can't read and you can't do math, and if you go to any kind of like convenience store or something and they got a compact change if you pay with cash, you can see they can't do it. And I mean, I guess if the whole country goes to that digital currency like they're talking about, that'll help all those kids that can't count, because they won't even have to. Everything will be done on a computer. They won't even have to do that stuff. But I mean, they can't even count back change, or they give you this, you know, dumbfounded look, like, you know, while they're trying to think of what they're supposed to be giving you. I'm gonna just see what's on the other side of this bridge here. See what things look like over here. Yeah, they have neighborhoods. The Ruskin Hills neighborhood is 438 times worse than the national average. The South Blue Valley, 541% worse. They have some neighborhoods that the violent crime is 800% worse. So it's got its bad areas. We're not going to go through any of them today because the city's just too huge to try and cover stuff. I wanted to see the downtown because I wanted to see, one, if there were homeless people. And there were a couple people I saw that might have been homeless, but I haven't seen anybody, any like tents on the sidewalk or any place where, you know, like there's just a bunch of people hanging out that are homeless. The litter on the freeway was kind of bad, but once you're in town here, the litter's not that bad. The roads are actually pretty good for a city, because most of them are really bad. And the roads are actually pretty good. I don't know if they actually have a train that really runs on this, or if that line hanging above me and the tracks below me are just, you know, been there from before and they just never removed them. Yeah, up here we got Chinatown Food Market. There's a bunch of graffiti on the side of that building. It looks like a building that they just tore down. Overall, I would say it isn't too bad. We'll go up. Actually, let's just turn this way. Let's just turn this way. There's graffiti there on the back side of that building. Strange Days Brewing Company. Should have went up that road. There's a homeless guy with his wheelchair there. Okay, now it looks like we're heading over to the little shadier part of town. A little bit. I mean, we're just outside of downtown. Maybe not. Doesn't look too bad. We went through a little patch there that, had I turned right, I think I would have ended up in a bad area. Try and get ahead of this guy. Yeah, I think some of this is getting into a little bit of shadier area. There's graffiti there, not a lot. There's a skate park, a lot of graffiti right by that on everything, but you know, it's a skate park. You kind of expect that. There's some guys on the skate park. Lady carrying her doggy. All right. right, well, we get a little look at what the houses look like here. These are all jammed in here. The nicer houses and the nicer neighborhoods and stuff are much further out. Just going to do a little more drive through here. I'm just going to let this play out a little bit. I'll drive through some of this neighborhood a little bit, and this is Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, this is the bad area, I guess. Well, there's like a huge tent city right there. That's why we didn't see them on the street. You can see all the garbage behind the fence. There's a whole bunch of tents, at least a half dozen. At least a half dozen in there, more than that. Some of them are huge. They got like mansions set up in there.